This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on September the 26th, 2022. And we have a three-peat guest today, folks, right on my shirt. Yes, anybody that's watching the Zoom here can see this lovely lady. Yes, I have Princess Victoria, the wrestling legend herself. How do you do, Princess Victoria?
I'm doing fine, Greg. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I started a new job this year working at the hospital, and that's allowing me to at least put some money away, which is something I wasn't able to do with my previous job. So that's great. And I haven't seen Terry Funk or Mick Foley in the hospital, so they must not be wrestling right now.
Right? Well, no, I think Terry's completely retired. Terry's got some health issues.
Yeah, that's
Serious.
what I hear. I always loved Terry Funk to me, and he's the best of the hardcore because he can actually wrestle, and he takes it
Right.
serious. Yeah.
Right. And he's a heck of a nice man. I Terry was one of my favorite people. Um, when I was wrestling, we spent some time partying together.
I've often said that people would ask me what I consider the greatest tag teams are, and for me, to me, I like a level of strength and speed,
Right.
and for me, my top pick would probably be the Road Warriors because Animal and Hawk had that balance of both. But I would put the Funk Brothers right up there as number two because,
Oh yeah.
yeah, because
I agree 100%. They never a dull moment in the ring.
yeah, I love the Funk Brothers. They definitely should always be in the conversation when it comes to tag teams, and yeah, and I have tremendous respect for tremendous respect for Terry Funk in particular. Although Dory is also a great craftsman in the ring, so great stuff in Japan out of them. I'll tell you that.
Right. Well, yeah. When you're in Japan, there's no sitting down.
Yep,
It's
absolutely.
it was a whole different ball game in Japan back in my day.
Yep.
Uh, if you weren't running, you were wrestling. If you weren't wrestling, you were yelling. I mean, hi.
Hey, look at this. This is Skittles. This is my tag team partner.
Couldn't get a better one. Hi, Skittles.
Skittles
Hey, baby.
Skittles wants to know if you have treats.
Always. Always.
Yeah, he is my buddy. Yes, he is. He's my buddy Skittles.
Oh,
Yeah.
he loves his daddy. Look
Yes,
at
he
that
does.
paw. Look at that paw.
Here you go.
He
Yeah.
had to come. He had to come get his 15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love my kitty cat.
When I was living at my sister's, we had a big old black long-haired cat,
Yeah.
and we had this little breakfast bar that separated the dining room from the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the stove one night cooking, and all of a sudden this cat jumped from about 6 feet away off the breakfast bar and landed on my shoulder.
Wow.
It then became a game as to where he was going to be sitting on a counter or a dresser or wherever on the table, and whether he could make my shoulder or lay scratch marks down my back as he fell.
Well, Skittles was going to wrestle at one time, and then he thought, he's too lazy for it. But I back in the day, I would have booked him against the Junkyard Dog.
Right.
Skittles would be the Junkyard Cat.
Right. Yeah, I've got my two babies. They're in the bedroom asleep. wondering why mommy is starving them to death, because I haven't fed them yet. And oh my God, it's 6:30.
There you go. Well, I was under the impression, I know you were in Casino for a while, and just not feeling your best as of late. And I thought to myself, I get it. I mean, the realization of some poor woman out there actually had sex with Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis would make anybody sick and out of
Oh
action for
Lord
a
God,
while.
you did not have to put that picture in my head. Greg, I'm gonna hang up on you. That was rotten.
You know
Well,
what? I got to admit, it's kind of nice to see Vince get his comeuppance because there is so much that he has done to screw people over.
right?
Yep. Like there's a lot of stuff, and it's almost like he thinks he owns people. It's like, yeah, and Bret Hart owned him in the locker room there. That punch to the head. Bad News Brown choked the hell out of him. Nails choked the hell out of him. I don't think Vince is winning any fights against anybody.
Well, to tell you the truth, from what I hear, since he's not involved with the WWE anymore, things are starting to turn around.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that the matches are much better than they were.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of these crazy sitcom stories, about somebody giving birth to a hand or something like that. They're actually going back to reality.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear it, because who doesn't, even people who don't watch wrestling knows what the WWE is.
Mm-hmm.
So they represent wrestling, which is, and the way Vince had turned it, degrading women, back in the 80s and 90s. That's when I quit watching. But I'm glad to see that it's coming back more towards the reality into wrestling. They could put wrestling back up where it belongs.
Yep. And I liked it back in the day too, when you were able to believe what you were watching,
Right.
Yeah. But there was a lot of problems. Number one, you get people like Hulk Hogan, who's not willing to uh lay down for anybody,
Right.
that became a problem. Like I just watching a thing online the other night, lies that Hulk Hogan's told, and I know Jim Cornette did a video on this as well. And some of the stuff apparently he said is just outrageously imbecilic,
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Back in my day, it wasn't about who won or lost. It was how the game was played. Same rules in any sport. If it didn't, what mattered in my day was, did the fans get what they were asking for?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, when they walked out, were they going to be satisfied that they spent their $10, that they got their $10 worth?
Mm-hmm.
And it, not going down for somebody, to me, that's egomaniac style.
Yeah.
And I realized that. See, I remember Terry Hulk Hogan when he was Terry
Mm-hmm.
in Portland, when he first started out. And when I finally got to New York about 4 years later at Madison Square Garden, here comes Terry and his wife. So of course, I raised a hand. Hey, Terry, how you doing? And I swear to God, I saw his nose go straight up in the air. And he walked within a foot of me, heard me, and acted like he didn't know who the hell I was. So now picture this. knowing me as well as you know me,
Mhm.
I stood there for a minute and I said, "Oh hell, why not?" Piper was sitting over on a chair about 10 foot away, and I turned around. I said, "Hey, Terry, prima donna much?" And calling somebody a prima donna in wrestling is as bad as calling somebody a bitch in jail.
Mhm.
You know, that's the ultimate disrespect. And Piper fell off his chair laughing. Literally fell off his chair laughing.
I miss Roddy Piper,
Oh
I,
God,
uh,
yeah.
I, yeah, I still talk to Ariel, his daughter, um, off and on, and still connected with her, and she's got a lot of her dad in her. I can see that.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
he was, if not one of the best person I've ever met in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
He anytime me and the girls or any of the girls came to town, Piper and Don Morocco,
Mm-hmm.
because they knew we didn't know where the motels were. You didn't have GPS back in those days. You had a road map.
Mm-hmm.
They would make sure that once we left, they made sure we got to the right motel. They made sure we got to the venue. You know, they were our big brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And you could always count on Morocco, Piper, Alpha, and Sika. Those four right there made sure that the girls were taken care of when we were in their territories.
Ah, nice. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always nice to have people that will look out for you,
Well,
But
yeah. Yeah. Well, back in my day, it was a family. You know, wrestling was a family. We were brothers and sisters, and we still are to this day.
except Moolah wanted to put y'all up for adoption, but
God, I wish she would have.
no, I meant up for adoption in a bad way.
Oh no, 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 no. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, don't even get me started.
Mm-hmm.
She's. I've always said, I'll say it to this day. As a person, wouldn't throw a glass of water on her if she was on fire. As a wrestler, she's got her rightful place in our history. And what Vinnie Mac has tried to wipe her from wrestling history, is about as wrong as it gets. That would be like baseball getting rid of Babe Ruth. You know, I mean, Babe Ruth was a drunk. He was a womanizer. He got into fights all the time, but he was
Mm-hmm.
a heck of a baseball player. So he has his right in baseball history. You don't have to like him as a person, but you've got to respect his talent.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole thing, like Vince trying to erase people, somebody ought to erase him,
Well,
he's a guy that gets on covers of these magazines all jacked up with a chain over his neck and trying to sell us on him not being on steroids. Horse shit.
excuse me, I remember when that pencil neck geek was a pencil neck geek, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a neck bigger than his.
Mm-hmm.
But mine came from working out and doing a Harvard Bridges, not putting a needle in my arm or taking steroids.
Yeah.
And I at one point, Greg, I think I told you I was trying to get a documentary done about ladies of the 80s. You know, the
Okay.
ladies that I wrestled with. And there was one question, and we interviewed somewhere between 50 and 75 people.
Okay.
And there was one particular question I asked every wrestler, promoter, manager, referee that I interviewed. If you could go back in time and change one thing in wrestling history, what would it be? With the exception of one person, everyone else said the day that Mr. McMahon Sr. turned the business over to Vinnie Mac, with the exception of one person.
Who was the one person?
That was Diane von Hoffman, and she's passed away since then. And
Okay.
hers was not about wrestling. It was about a personal thing that had happened to her.
Mhm.
She was the only person who did not say that they wished that Mr. McMahon Sr. had never turned it over to Vinnie Mac.
Mhm.
But I'm talking people like Les Thatcher, Guitar Man, Honky Tonk.
Mhm.
I could go on and on, but I can't remember all the names right now. Don't get old, people. It's a trap. Or as a lot of the other people say, too many chair shots to the head. My book.
Your book. Yeah, I'll sign. I like that on the back there.
Oh yeah, I love that picture. That's Japan. The reason I know it's Japan is because of the makeup I was wearing on my eyes.
Yeah, I love those pigtails.
Right? So did everybody else I wrestled.
Yeah, I got a nice signature there.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yep, and I've still got them for sale. The books are if you contact me on Facebook, Vicky Otis on Facebook, VICKIOTIS on Facebook. You can private message me and I'll send you one of my autographed books for $35.
Except Jim Cornette gets them for free, right?
No. He has to pay $150.
And of course, I love these. I'm glad I was able to get.
That is one of the first times, including our wrestling career, that Velvet and I have signed a picture together, and I still have those available, both shots. We've because of the economy, we've taken the price down on them because people just don't have money. They can hardly buy gas. They're now, and unfortunately, you got them when I first put them out, Greg. So don't throw anything at me. We're now doing them $50 a piece or $75 for a pair, autographed by both Velvet and I.
Yeah. How is Velvet doing?
Velvet is doing awesome. She is living up in British Columbia. She's got her own private piece of land. She's got 2 twin boys. They take care of their mom. She's been married for, well, I guess since she got out of wrestling back in '96. She goes to a few of the local shows. Once this COVID thing settles down a little bit more, we're looking at Velvet and I possibly doing a signing together.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've also talked to Judy Martin and Leilani Kai, and we're going to try to have all 4 of us in the same place signing autographs. Not sure exactly what the venue is going to be yet, but it is definitely in the works. Like I said, once this COVID settles down, and it's not so hard to get back and forth across the Canadian border, and it's probably going to be in the Northwest because Velvet doesn't fly.
How about you guys get in the ring and face each other? Look, if Moolah and Mae West can do it, or Mae Young,
No. I don't even go out of my yard in a bathing suit these days. Small children scream and run. I'm way too old for that. Way too old.
So is Mae Young.
Well, see, that's another pet peeve of mine with Vinny.
Mhm.
That should have never happened.
Yeah.
Those ladies at that age, that should have never happened. One of them could have easily died in the ring.
Oh, gee, Mae Young got put through a table.
I heard. Oh, I'm not taking it away from May or Moolah. Those were two tough old broads.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in my opinion, they had no business being in the ring. There were too many. Well, they were too old. I mean, you get that age, your bones get brittle. I'm surprised one of them didn't get seriously hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very surprised. I mean, and like I said, I give it to them. They're tough, but it should have never happened.
Moolah took an RKO from Randy Orton at 80 years old. I was like, holy shit, I was impressed.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm impressed too, like I said, but I'm seriously surprised somebody didn't get hurt. You know, my opinion, there's a time when you've got to step back and say, wait a minute. I'm too old to do this shit anymore.
So tell me, why doesn't Velvet fly?
She had a dream
Mm-hmm.
that she died in a fiery plane crash, I believe is what it was.
Ah.
And she's just had, and Velvet's like me, you know, you listen to your gut. You know, if your stomach starts turning about something, you need to listen. And she will not get on a plane now. And I can't say as I blame her, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing it twice. This Thursday and once at the end of the month.
Oh, really? Where are you going? You going to CAC?
Going to Toronto to a couple of horror film conventions.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't mind it, you know, as long as the pilot knows what he's doing, I'm good, I guess, you know.
Oh,
But
I don't. There's two parts of flying I don't like: takeoff and landing. Being in the air doesn't bother me, but going up or coming down, I got white knuckles. But I still do it occasionally.
there you go. There you go. How's Velvet with her hearing? I know you mentioned that.
She's been almost deaf since she was a child. I may be wrong, but I believe it was some.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was a car crash or a childhood disease, but she's been partially deaf since she was been a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess she got lucky having a partner that was a loudmouth like me. She didn't have to go, huh, all the time. But that's one of the reasons she doesn't do podcasts or phone interviews, is because she cannot hear that well. That's why I'm trying to get this meeting with me and her in the same place so the fans can see her again too.
Yeah, I've always loved Velvet McIntyre, you know, and actually between she and you know, there's not too many women in the business that have the energy that you two put on, and like I said, I seen her do stuff that I've only seen Ricky Steamboat do, you know, so.
You mean like that spinning cross body block?
Yeah.
Yeah, she brought that back from Japan. And Velvet was back in our day, we number one, we didn't steal each other's moves.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, it was never a dull moment. Like I said, you know, earlier, it's not about it's not about who goes over. It's not about who wins. Everybody wins as long as the fans are satisfied. And when Velvet and I were on the road, me, Velvet, Wendy, Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, all the girls like that, Candy Malloy. If we couldn't get down to the arena to get some workouts in, there were quite a few, I'm sure, bed frames that were broken, motel rooms, us honing our craft, and Velvet learned that move. I believe she got it from Devil Matsumi in Japan. But she's Velvet's one of Velvet and I were on the road together. We were in the same room together for almost 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there was never an argument between the two of us. We have never, ever had an argument.
Not even between you guys didn't argue about who loved Jim Cornette more?
Oh no, I let Velvet have him.
You guys didn't have an argument about who loved the Iron Sheik more?
I let Velvet have him too.
You guys didn't have a debate about how much hair is on George the Animal Steel?
Now that we did talk about. We did. we tried to figure out who had more hair on their back. Was it Smokey the Bear or George? And I think George won out. Man, you pulled that one out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
I haven't heard George's name till now.
Yeah, I got one of those rubber figurines over there of George.
Right. Well,
yeah.
There is a company, and I think it's called Powertrain.
Mm-hmm.
That is now doing figures again, wrestling figures.
Mm-hmm.
They just came out, Magnum TA. If they go on Facebook, Magnum TA's got a link to it. I'm going to be in there. I believe Leilani's going to be there. Judy's going to be there. I don't know. I think Velvet's going to be there too. Anybody who was smart enough not to sign that piece of paper for Vinnie Mac that said he owned them for life,
mm-hmm.
is going to probably be part of this. They're going back. They're going to go from the 50s and 60s to the 90s. And they're going to do all the retro figurines again. Unfortunately, I was trying to get, I talked to Sherry Martell's son,
mm-hmm.
because, he's head of her estate now.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they can't do Sherry Martell because Sherry signed a piece of paper from Vinnie. No, she can't have any, even though she's dead, God rest her soul, and I love Sherry to death. Even though she's dead, her son cannot authorize anybody to do anything on her because of the contract she signed with Vince McMahon.
I don't know. It just makes you want to take Vince McMahon out and own him,
Well,
like as tough as he thinks he is, and I'm not a badass, but if somebody told me that Vince wanted to meet me in the parking lot, I would fucking laugh.
right.
Now, if somebody told me that Terry Funk wanted to meet me in the parking lot, I'd be a little nervous.
Right.
But
Well,
Vince,
I put it out there that I'd give Vinny $1,000 to meet me in a room for 5 minutes, no consequences.
oh jeepers, my money would be on you.
I might be 61, but I've still got a little bit of fight left in me.
Yep.
And after the way he did me when I broke my neck, you realize to this day I have not heard one thing from the McMahon family, and I broke my neck in the ring at their show.
Yep.
I never got a phone call. I never got any help. I got virtually no medical attention. I was told 3 months after I broke my neck, time for you to go. I can't use you anymore. You can't wrestle. I can't use you anymore. You know, and I was part of that lawsuit with, what was his name? Constantine. You remember the big lawsuit that was going
Yep.
against it? Yeah,
Yep.
I was part of that. I've actually donated my brain. When I die, I've signed a contract with Constantine Kairos. That's his last name, Kairos.
Mm-hmm.
With Mr. Kairos, they are to take my brain, and there is a doctor that's going to fly to whatever hospital I'm in, and they're going to test my brain for the white matter, which I'm sure, I mean, I've been knocked out a couple of times a week.
Yep.
When I was wrestling. You can't, your average wrestler takes more hits in one match than a football player does in an entire season. Now, you can't tell me there isn't consequences physically for that. And I'm living proof.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like you said when we first got here, you know, you made the joke about, you know, Cornette and or Vinny and them with these women. I have been down for about, I'd say, 2 months. I'm just getting back to being me again. Because physically, I have periods of time where the pain in my joints and my muscles and all are so bad that leaving the house is not an option. Driving a car is not an option.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't turn your head to the left or the right, you can't drive. You know, if you've got so much pain in your body that you can't even concentrate on doing a simple podcast, you can't, you know, you can't drive. It's not an option. And
Mm-hmm.
I go through those periods. They're lasting longer and longer now. This last session that I went through when I wasn't on Facebook or anything else was well over a month. And it's just because I couldn't concentrate. I was in bed most of the time. And most of it stems back to that broken neck where I got no help.
What was your thoughts whenever the news came out about Vince here recently? Because he has been able to pretty much buy his way out of any scandals. We hear about the covering ups of stuff like Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, Mel Phillips, and even the situation with Jimmy Snuka, which came out not too long ago, you know, right around his passing. And it's like Vince had some deep pockets, and now it's like I don't think he can get himself out of this one.
God bless the woman who was strong enough to tell him to take his money and shove it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what her name is, but I've got ultimate respect for that woman standing up and saying, no, it's time you paid your dues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she knocked him off his throne per se.
Yep.
You know, and it's about time. I mean, the things that he has perpetuated and allowed to continue to happen in this business is beyond disgusting. You know, there's stories about those gentlemen. I use the term loosely.
Yep.
That I have heard. And any self-respecting person would have called the cops on them and had their butts arrested. But nobody would stand up. This woman has been stronger than everybody else. And I truly respect her courage, because she's got more courage than any lion I know.
Yep. But I mean, even look at some of the people that Vince had just kind of sold down the drain. Like even before the first WrestleMania, Dr. David Schultz ended up taking a fall over that, slapping the journalist there, you know, and it's as the story goes, he was doing what he was told to do, more or less.
Yeah, and who paid the lawsuit off? Was it Vinny or was it David? You know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it goes back to the May and Moolah thing. You know, Vinny's responsible for everything that happened, because ultimately he's the last one to put his signature on the bottom line. He's the one who had to say, okay. Pat Patterson, that man was disgusting.
Yeah.
There is a story about him, and I've heard it from people that have never lied to me, that saw him with a 10-year-old boy in his car. That man should have went to jail that day,
Mm-hmm.
that moment. But then he pulled his butt out of the fire. You know, when it all came down, when Barry Orton and oh Lord, Bruno Sammartino, when they did the was it Maury? No, it wasn't Maury. Who was it?
Oh,
Oh God, I'm glad you can't remember it either.
yeah. Oh, Donahue.
Phil Donahue, when they
Yeah.
did the Phil Donahue show.
Yep.
And all that trash came out about Pat Patterson. Why
Yeah.
wasn't he fired that day? Why was he ever allowed to come back? This, you know, you can't make me understand that. You can't make me believe that that was okay.
Oh, it wasn't.
And it says a whole lot. That right there, that situation right there, says 100% about the person that Vinnie Mac is.
And they, of course, they celebrated the fact that Pat Patterson was the first, they say the first gay wrestler. I don't know, but they were going on about that.
Bullshit. Dang, what was it? Chris. Oh Lord, I can see him. I wrestled with him in Tonko's territory in British. Chris Colt.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 80s, openly gay. You know, when did Pat come out as being gay? What, 90 something?
But what's interesting, it's almost as like that was being used to cover everything up, like take the situation off of the allegations.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but all they did was perpetuate the lie that every gay man is a pedophile. No. Pat Patterson was gay, but he was also a pedophile. I have a lot of gay friends. I was introduced to the LGBTQ community in Portland when I was 14. They took care of me.
Mm-hmm.
They made sure that I wasn't sleeping in a doorway with newspaper as blankets anymore. They got me off the streets. They got me into a hotel that I could afford. They found me a job. They made sure I made it to work, you know. But Pat Patterson, is not claimed by the gay community. I can tell you that. They
No.
reject him. They reject him exclusively because he was and is a pedophile. You know, the man should have never been allowed to come back in our business.
And I was trying to find on here somebody else that was involved in trying to think of what his name was that was involved in wrestling. I know that Adrian Street had beaten the guy up. Who was it
Adrian Street beat him up.
yeah, who was it? It was one of those major personalities out of Europe. Who was that?
Now that I have no idea.
Oh, you'll probably know if I can find the friggin' name, but I know.
Well, Adrian's a stand-up guy. I mean, to this day, he's friends with my cousin. Funny thing, my cousin reconnected with me. We had not been in contact since either one of us were kids. He got back in touch with me on Facebook because of Princess Victoria. He didn't know I was Princess Victoria, and he's friends with Adrian Street, and he had done the Adrian Street gimmick. He had actually gotten in touch with Adrian Street and asked his permission. And Adrian gave him the permission to do the gimmick because Adrian wasn't wrestling anymore. So me and my cousin, we get together, and I looked at his name, and I said, wait a minute. I said, do you have a sister that's named Robbie Crumb? He said, yeah. I said, hey, cuz. Now, that's a heck of a thing to happen. He didn't know that Princess Victoria was his cousin, and I didn't know my cousin was a wrestler.
I found the name, Jimmy Savile.
I don't recognize that name. Why did Adrian beat him up? Is he again a pedophile?
Apparently. I don't know, a disgraced TV presenter as yeah, they got a thing on there. Yeah, it says Adrian Street on why he beat the shit out of Jimmy Savile.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this guy was a wrestler?
He was a TV personality, but yeah, something came up there. But Jimmy Savile was one of these people that was beloved until it came out.
Right. Well, I've always said, and I'm a survivor of serious abuse. You've read it in my book.
Yep.
And I've always spoken out about it.
Yep.
I've never kept it hidden. And people are coming into the realization now that if you don't say anything, it's going to keep happening and happening and happening. I spoke out against my stepfather 4 different times. And 4 different times I was called a liar. Starting at 4 years old. And up until my biological mother's dying day, she never accepted the fact that her husband was raping her children. And to this day, I don't understand it. When he went to jail, she stayed married to the man.
Yeah, that says a lot.
For her, it sure does. She there are some people that should just never be parents. And my mother was one of them. She had 6 kids by 6 different fathers.
Oh my.
Starting with me. And she exchanged the innocence of her children for a swinging piece of meat. That's about as gently as I can put it. And what I'm seeing happening now is what I would wish would have happened when I was a child. People are talking, they're speaking out about the abuse now.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying you can't keep me as a what's the word I'm looking for? As a victim.
Yeah.
You can't keep victimizing me. I'm going to speak out. And every person in this world who is being victimized right now needs to speak out. They need to find a way to point the finger. They need to know it's okay. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. And you need to quit being a victim and speak out and say, this person is abusing me.
I'll tell you, one of the stories you've told before that I always enjoyed hearing was when your mother called you and said that your father was coming down to the wrestling arena, and
Yep.
somebody had said to you what was wrong, and they finally got it out of you, and they were waiting for him to show up.
It was in Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was Elton Owens was the promoter.
Mm-hmm.
I got a phone call. I was told to go up to Elton's office because I got a phone call from my mother. Well, my instant instinct is something has happened to one of our family, because there was no reason for her to call me at the match. And she told me that my stepfather was coming down, and I froze. I literally went back into that little kid. And I was sitting there in the dressing room, and Rip Oliver
Mm-hmm.
walked in, and he looked at me and he says, "What's wrong, Vicky?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "Bullshit. What's wrong, Vicky?" And I broke down, because nobody in the business knew what had happened to me as a kid. And I told him the story, and he said, "You stay right here. I'll be right back." Well, Velvet and I were supposed to have a single match, and my biological mother had told me that my stepfather was coming. And I told Rip disappears, come back. Velvet and I are not only not having a single match, we are having a mixed tag team, 2 wrestlers. That's 2 wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
We are having managers for the for each of our teams. So that's 4 men. And it was the biggest of them. And it was oh shoot. It was Rip Oliver, Matt Boren, oh shoot, what was his name? Fidel Cortez. And I want to say Buddy Rose was out there too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you know the size of the men I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
These guys each packed well over 200 pounds. And I was told, when you see him, you look at me and you point, and then you turn your pretty little head and look away.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was. You turn your pretty little head and you look away. You don't want to see what's going to happen. I have every belief in the bottom of my soul that if that man had showed up at that match or tried to walk up to me at that match, he'd never made it out of the building alive. You know, this was back in my day. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, wrestling was a family when I was in it.
Yep.
This was what family did. So.
And to top it off, you had them out there, but there must have been a lot of other wrestlers in the locker room too. Like,
oh, there was not one wrestler in that locker room. Every one of them were standing outside watching that match. Every single one of them. And you're talking somewhere between 10 and 12 guys. You figure 5 matches. I doubt that there would have been enough left of that person to do a DNA test on him when my brothers were done with him. He never showed up.
Yeah, probably for good reason.
he never showed up, and I don't know if they set somebody at the front door or what, because when I told Rip what was going on, the matches hadn't started yet. And so there's no telling what was going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about. But those guys, like I said, they were brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I was little sister. I started in wrestling. I started going to the matches every Saturday night when I moved to Portland when I was 14.
Yeah.
And it was when I first started going there, I was just another fan. Somehow I got pulled into this family of wrestlers. And to this day, I'm still not sure how. But they're like the mafia. Once you're in, you never get out.
There you go. There you go.
That's the way we are. You know, to this day, you know, if I made a phone call, hey, I need this, somebody would be there to help me. You know, somebody would be there. Somebody would be put in place to help me with whatever I needed to do.
Do you, why do you think your father didn't show up?
Well, he wasn't my father now. He was my stepfather.
Stepfather, okay. Why do you think he didn't show up?
I don't know. I know I got the call from her that he was definitely going to be there. And then I never saw him again. I never saw him. So I don't know if something happened in the parking lot. You know, I don't know what actually happened. But he was for sure going to be there. And then I never saw him. So he may have told the wrong person that he was here to see Princess Victoria and everything was taken care of outside. To this day, I have no idea. Because I'm from the day he went to jail, I haven't spoken to that man since.
Did you see him at all after this incident?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
I just wonder.
I haven't to this very day, since I left that house, since he left that house in handcuffs in Salem, or no, it was in Oroville, California. I have not spoke to that man. And I never saw him. Like I said, he was definitely supposed to be there, but I never saw him. It was taken care of, obviously. I can't imagine how he crawled to his car, because I saw the look when I told Rip, I saw the look on Rip's face.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, I'd never told anybody in wrestling what had happened to me as a kid till that day. The look on his face would make it made your blood run cold. I mean, there was that look. And I know that every wrestler in that room, in that dressing room, knew what was going on, because Rip pulled them all into a circle. And then he went and talked to Elton, and then he came back, and I never saw that man. So I don't know what happened to him. I can imagine I can dream.
Do you think he got the shit beat out of him?
No, I know he did. I don't know he did. I don't, nobody told me he did, but I know he did.
Ah,
I know he did. There's no doubt in my mind.
because after reading the accounts in this book, I kind of love hearing that.
Well, see, there was a time that I used to pray for that man to die.
Yep.
Then I found out that he was over 400 pounds and had to take an oxygen tank with him everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That was the day I started praying for him to be the longest living person in the history of mankind. What a better way to suffer.
Yeah.
What a better way to suffer. You know, and I put all that in that book for a reason. If it helps one person who's going through anything similar to what I went through as a child,
Mm-hmm.
if it helps that one person to stand up for themselves and quit being a victim, start being a survivor, or as one of Tully Blanchard's daughters, husband, Terry and I were talking about, he said, "You're not a survivor." And I looked at him. He says, "No, you're a champion. When you're a survivor, you're just surviving. When you're a champion, you've conquered it."
Yep.
And if that story if those stories in that book helps one person stand up, then I've done what I set out to do. You know, because there's too much of it going on.
Yes.
How many, you know, in my childhood, I spoke up 4 times. And I was called a liar 4 times. And then, of course, I got crap kicked out of me when he found out that I stood up again. But it finally happened. You know, the man was finally put in jail because I kept staying up. You know, and I don't want to see anybody go through what I went through. If it stops one child from being hurt, one person from saying, "I can't take this anymore," and creating a permanent solution to a temporary situation. And what I mean by that is suicide. A lot of children, you know, I had a counselor at 14 after he went to jail. And she told me, she said, "Vicki, you got 2 choices. You take the road to the left, that where you sit and you waller and you go, 'Oh, poor, poor, pitiful me.'
Mm-hmm.
Or you can take the road to the right and realize that most kids that were in your situation are buried dead in a field somewhere, and that you got out of it." And I remember that woman's name to this day, and that was 47 years ago. And I chose the road to the right. But there were times, Greg, that there was one night I was sitting in my living room, and I had the barrel of a gun in my mouth and tears running down the barrel because I was tired, just so tired.
Mm-hmm.
Tired of fighting every day to get up, tired of fighting every day to survive. And my son was probably 6 months old. And I was going to do it. And I heard this voice. And I heard this voice 3 times in my life. This was the second time. And it was a very deep, male, sarcastic voice. And it said, "So you're going to let your ex-husband and his mother raise the boy?" And I laid the gun down in my lap and I said, "You won't even let me kill myself, really?"
Yeah.
You know, I have this guardian angel that He's spoken to me 3 times in my life when I really needed to listen. And like I said, it's a very deep, sarcastic voice.
Mm-hmm.
And as tough as I am, I went there. I had my finger on the trigger and the safety off. I was done. I was blessed. A lot of people don't have that voice. And I'm hoping that those chapters in that book give them a voice. Give them the strength to know that they can keep going, that they can keep standing up, they can keep fighting, because it's worth it. It's worth it in the long run. I mean, here I am, 61 years old. I met my soulmate, the love of my life, my husband, Jack, and I've got my son, John. And if I had pulled that trigger that day, I wouldn't have all that.
No.
There's always tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It may not change tomorrow, but it might change the next day. But soon your situation will change.
Yeah. So tell me, going back to Vince, I was wondering, and I don't recall if I ever asked this, but what was Velvet's relationship like with Vince?
We didn't have while I was in the business, when Velvet and I were together, we didn't have a relationship with Vince.
Okay.
None at all. I mean, never got invited out to dinner. I mean, Arnold Spolin took me out to Mama Leone's in New York, took me out to a bar that was very, very, how do you say it? There was a whole lot of guys with their nose pushed to the side. And Arnold was basically our go-between. He was the one who talked to Vince. Now, when Mr. McMahon Sr., notice I called Mr. McMahon Sr. and the other one Vinnie Mac.
Yep.
Mr. McMahon Sr., when he was in charge of the business, anytime that we showed up at Madison Square Garden or he was at the matches, he would come in and speak to us girls. It might not be for 5 minutes, but he'd at least peek his head in the door. How's things going? This is what I want. Is everybody okay with that? And then he'd leave. But Vinnie Mac, I never saw him once he took the business over. He never checked on us. He never made sure that, we knew the next venue. I never saw him, other than when he was walking into the guys' dressing room, chasing around behind Piper and Hogan. He was an ultimate fan of Piper and Hogan. It was kind of funny. He looked like a little girl chasing after a wrestler, what we commonly call a ring rat.
There we go.
He was always, that's the only time I saw him. He never spoke to us, not one time. And like I said, Velvet and I were in the same dressing room, so I'm pretty sure it was the same with Velvet.
I was wondering, what's the most unique match you were ever involved with, because there's a lot of stipulation matches. What's the most unique one that you've been involved with?
Oh, the 8-man over the top battle royal in Portland.
Okay.
With Buddy Rose, Rip Oliver, Matt Boren. I think Chris Colt was there. I know I'm forgetting names. I think Stan Stasiak and Dutch Savage were there too. And that was at this theater in Salem. And I was actually second to last man out. At the end, it was me and Buddy Rose. And I was a smart kid to a point. I knew that I couldn't whoop him legally. That if I was going to win, I was going to have to pull something really dirty. And we ended up, now I don't know if you picture a theater with the aisles down the side and down the middle.
Yep.
And the ring was up on a stage, and when I realized that it was me and Buddy, I ducked through the ropes. I didn't go over because if I went over, I was out. I ducked through the ropes and took off running. And he took off chasing me. And we ran up the aisle and down the aisle and up the aisle and down the aisle. And every time he ran by my bio mom and my brother, they'd stick their leg out and try to trip him. And they actually tripped him one time. And it was a good thing because he was about 2 inches from my back. And I ended up getting back in the ring, and I thought Rip Oliver was out, and I had turned around. I can't remember why I turned around, but all of a sudden I had a guy on each arm, and they threw me up against this brick wall about 5 foot in the air. And I slid down the brick wall. Well, when I sat up, of course, I busted my head open.
Oh.
And I laid back down, and all of a sudden I see these 2 legs over the top of me, and I hear the words, "You touch her again, you son of a bitch, and I'll kill you." And I look up, and here's my little brother, Doug, straddling me up against Rip Oliver and Buddy Rose, daring them to touch me.
Oh, wow.
Now, he was about 15 at the time. And Sandy had to come get him. Sandy Barr and Dwayne, a security guard that we had to come get my brother and take him off the stage. And Sandy made him sit down back in his seat. The 8-man over the top battle royal was the main event, so the matches were over. And I go down in the dressing room. Go to getting my head cleaned up, and all the guys come in. Who was that? Who was that? I said, that was my little brother. And they all just, that was your little brother that did that? I said, yep, that was my little brother. He was going to stop them from hurting me. And me and my brother have always been that way with each other. I guess it started one time when I knocked the principal backwards over his desk when he called my brother a son of a bitch in school. And hang on a second. Come here, Shadow. Sorry, I had to let the dog out. But he didn't know that I had told that story that I just told you on Vice TV on Dark Side of the Ring. And I called up Dave at Vice TV. I said, can you get me a link? Can you, take that and put it on YouTube so I can send it to my brother? 10 minutes later, they had it on YouTube, and I sent it to my brother. And he called me up, cussing me out. I said, what did I do? He said, you made me cry in front of my friend. He watched the video, and he didn't know that I remembered that day as well as I did. And it made him cry. It was tears of happiness, but it made him cry.
I tease a lot about Jim Cornette, and I'm a big Jim Cornette fan. I could listen to him talk for hours, but talk about you and Velvet working with Jim Cornette.
That was in New York, or was that in Charlotte? No, I can't remember if it was New York or Charlotte. He was managing Wendy.
Yep.
And it was, for all his bravado, and I love him to death. You and I joke on him all the time. You and I joke on him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when I went to one of my first wrestling reunions, I went to the Gathering in Charlotte, and Jimmy was standing there, and we hadn't seen each other in 40 years. Almost 40 years. And, I put on a little bit of weight. I still have a waist under here somewhere. And I walked up and I whispered in Jimmy's ear. I said, I bet you can't tell me my name, can you? And he stopped dead. And he looked. And he looked. He said, say something else. I said, you don't know who I am, do you? And he looked, I mean, just bent his head. You know how you get when you're just really looking hard at something. And I said,
Yep.
I said, princess. And as soon as I said that word, that man had me in a bear hug. He was holding on to me. Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. But it's just, and I have that reaction with every one of the wrestlers that I was in the business with when I see them again. It's still the same. And Jimmy, when he was managing Wendy and he brought that trophy out, and Duggan came out and broke the trophy into a million pieces and then laid that lip lock on Wendy. Oh my God. That was one of the highlights of my career, watching that.
What was Wendy's reaction to it?
Well, I think it was pretty obvious what her reaction is to it. I'm not sure she knew that part was going to happen. I really don't think she knew Duggan was going to come out. I don't think she knew at all. I mean, you saw her. She had her back up against the ring. What happened? What? I was laughing. I thought it was funny.
There you go. Well, you locked lips with her.
Yeah. That was definitely a lot. He locked lips with her. That was the kiss. He bent her over backwards. But no, Jimmy is one of those guys. I put him as a mouth right up there with Piper, because you could put them two in side by side, and you wouldn't know what neither one of them was going to say next.
Nope.
I don't know if I told this story to you before or not about the infamous Piper interview in the Crow's Nest in Portland.
You might have, but let's go through it again just in case.
We were all in the dressing room. Piper went up, and this was the infamous Piper Buddy Rose feud, where they went from being tag team to deadly mortal enemies. And Piper's up in the Crow's Nest, and he's going on and on and on, and all of a sudden, and he's talking about how stupid Buddy Rose was, how ignorant he was. He says, I mean, look at this. And he's got his finger pointing at his belly button. He said, I've got enough room in my belly button for a cockroach egg, Buddy Rose's brain, and the heart of a promoter. Now, Don Owens was watching this, who was the promoter in Portland, and you could hear everybody physically, just the wind was knocked out of him when he said that. We all knew Piper was fired, because Piper was up there talking junk about Don Owens. And I've never seen, none of us had ever brought Don Owens into, the interview. Never. You never downed Don Owens. And it was out of respect. It wasn't out of fear. You just didn't do it. But we all knew Piper was fired. And Piper comes in and sits down in the dressing room. You could hear a pin drop. It was dead quiet. And all of a sudden, the door swings open. Here comes Don Owens, and he's marching. And Don Owens was not a big man, but he was marching, and he walked right up to Piper. He said, let me tell you something. And I mean, he had that finger going. Let me tell you something, Roddy Piper. And we all knew what the next words were. He says, and he stops and he grins and he goes, that was the best damn interview I've ever heard. And everybody in the room went, just let it out. We were all holding our breath.
It's sad, that you ended up having to leave the business when you did, in terms of being in ring. I suppose this is probably an ignorant question, but do you miss the being in the ring at all?
Every single day since I left,
Mm-hmm.
every single day. That made me being in wrestling made me who I am today. They showed me what family was. You know, it was just, how do I put, it was like leaving my family. When I left the business, when I had to leave the business, it broke my heart.
I bet.
Literally broke my heart. And a lot of people ask me, well, if you could change that, would you change that? And my one answer, I only have one answer to that question to everybody, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Because if I had stayed in wrestling, I'd have never met my first husband. If I never met my first husband, I would not have the wonderful son I have today. If I had stayed in wrestling, I'd have never met my second husband. You know, my soulmate, my best friend. He was either making me laugh, pissing me off, or holding me when I cried. And having those two men in my life was worth a broken neck.
Okay.
I would not change it for the world.
Well, how often do you get to do the conventions and the signings?
I haven't really done any conventions yet. I go to the wrestling reunions. I go to CAC. I was inducted into the CAC Hall of Fame in 2018. I've done some virtual signings. I haven't really got into the conventions and all. Since I've got two dogs and they're elderly,
Yep.
and Sunny's fine. You give Sunny a treat, you know, you pet Sunny, she's fine. I don't care where mom is. You know, you're petting me, I'm fine.
Yep.
In fact, since I moved out here, when my neighbor pulls in next door, she goes to the door and wants to be let out so she can go see my neighbor. Shadow, on the other hand, I can be gone 48 hours at the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him in foster care, and it wasn't like where they have runs and all that. This was a private household. He was inside. They let him out to play in the yard and all of that. On the third day, they got up in the morning and he lost it. He was peeing everywhere. He was shaking. He wouldn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
And he just sat in the corner. And that's not Shadow. And since that day, I haven't left him for over 48 hours because he's 11 years old. In fact, he's almost 12 years old now. And I'm not going to have him much longer. Once he passes, I'll start doing the conventions full time. But right now,
We'll go put you at a table with Jim Cornette and the Iron Sheik.
Oh God, please let me sit in the middle. She says with full sarcasm. Actually, I've seen the Iron Sheik. He was at Walmart in Franklin, Virginia.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, and I don't know that if many people know this or not, but the Iron Sheik does not believe that women have anywhere, and I'm talking about truly believes that women have no business in wrestling.
I think the women's wrestling right now is the best part. I mean, you look at Charlotte Flair, she's amazing.
Right. And Ronda Rousey,
Ronda Rousey, yep.
And what's the other one I'm trying to think of? Nyla Rose, Mahala Hosaki.
A lot of these names I don't even know.
Well, I've been watching the women wrestling. I actually went to Pondo up in Indiana, literally had an all-woman show. Women referees, women wrestlers, women security guards, women commentary. The whole show was all women. And I saw some of the best matches that I have seen in a very long time. I mean, these women that he had were fantastic. There's Mickey, what is her last name?
Mickey James?
No, not Mickey James. I haven't seen her wrestle yet. She's been in the business well, so is this. I need to write their names down. But he's going to start having all girl matches quite a bit of the time now. But these I mean, there was one girl, she was well over 6 foot tall, because I'm 5'9", and she was looking down on me. She came in and she stood against the corner, against the corner on the outside of the ring, and all of a sudden she did the most beautiful back bend flip over the ring and landed on her feet. I've never seen anybody enter the ring like that before. I mean, it was
wow.
total gymnastic move. And the matches had me going, damn, that hurt. Now, when you can take me back to being a fan when I'm watching a match, I love it. I really do. Because, and watching these ladies, there was some hellacious matches. And we're also, I'm going to start working with Tommy down here in Guthrie, Oklahoma. He has matches. I'm going to be working with him at the matches. I'm not going to be wrestling. I'm going to be in a little bit part of the management. And he's got a match. He's got the matches are on October 8th at the fairgrounds in Guthrie. Funny Bone's going to be there, which is one of my favorite male wrestlers. I don't know if you've seen him or not, but he's a hell of a wrestler, and every one of the guys are seasoned veterans that are going to be at these matches. And I guess I'm going to start. You asked me if I was going to get back into wrestling. I guess I am back into wrestling again, working with Tommy. So if anybody's out there that's within 100 miles of Guthrie, Oklahoma, they need to come on down. The matches start at 7:30 on the 8th of October at the fairgrounds. We're the last, if you go down the road, we're the last building at the fairgrounds on the left. And I saw the setup the other night. It's a really nice setup, nice bleachers, plenty of room. And like I said, I guess I'm back into wrestling full time. I mean, I'm putting out posters. I've got tickets for sale. So, like I said, it's like the mafia. Once you're in, you're never out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I enjoyed your book, and I definitely was so honored to get these pictures in the mail. Glad that I gotta say, and I've said this before, had it not been for my interest in Velvet McIntyre, I would have never have discovered you. And I'm going to tell you, I remember that day sitting down, watching these on YouTube, and you were wonderful in the ring, especially when you get hyped up and do your war dance.
That came out of nowhere one night. It just came out. That was not something I ever intended to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the crowd was chanting, and I grabbed I believe it was Wendy Richter's hair that I grabbed a hold of.
I think so.
And started dancing around the ring, and it just happened. Like I said, it's not something that I practiced or ever thought I would do. It just happened. It's just one of those things.
do you see much of Wendy anymore? I know last time we spoke, you said she was involved heavily in. Um,
I think it's Weimaraners. I believe
okay, yeah,
that she shows. I believe that's the dog. It's a very thin, kind of got a greyhound look, but it's not a greyhound. I think it's a
oh, okay,
Weimaraner. She's had her dogs have won first place at the Westminster show,
mm-hmm.
and she's in Florida, and she is a physical therapist, not one that you go see. She comes to your house. Wendy's doing real good for herself. She's come out to a couple of shows. Unfortunately, I haven't been at the shows that she was at.
So is she
I
going to go to Jim Cornette's house and
I'll let you ask her that question.
I'd love to have her on here so I could ask her that question. But no, I probably should at some point send an email into Jim Cornette's little podcast he does there and ask him about his interactions with you and Velvet. I know he hates Vince Russo. But
I don't think anybody in the business has any love lost for that man.
yeah, he just seems to me went out of his way to make wrestling into something, turned it into a freak show.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But once again, you can't blame him for it. Who signed on the dotted line?
Vince.
Who put that's right. Vince McMahon,
Mm-hmm.
because he had the last say. Now, he was raised in this business.
Yeah.
No, I don't like Vince Russo. I can't say I don't like him. I don't know him. I've never met the man. I don't like what he's done. Let me be honest. You can't dislike somebody you've never met. But I don't like what he's done. The wrestlers that have died in the ring working for the WWE over the last 20 years, especially we can go back to Owen Hart.
Owen, yeah.
You know, there was no reason for him to be 85 feet above the ring.
No.
And why wasn't that harness double checked? There's something wrong with that. You know, and Owen being the person he was, screamed as he's falling from the harness, "Get out of the way," or "Look out." He made sure that the people under him knew that he was falling. And this is the people who died. Eddie Guerrero. What's his name? Guy who
Chris Benoit.
Chris Benoit. Everybody knew, including Vinnie Mac, knew that this man was on a downward spiral.
Yep.
And when you start doing steroids and cocaine, that's a deadly.
Yeah.
That's a deadly mix. And everybody talks about in the business about how the wrestlers did drugs. I never saw it. I never saw cocaine anywhere. Not at a party, not anywhere. Not at a wedding. I went to Jay Youngblood's wedding on Halloween in Charlotte. There were no drugs there.
Mm-hmm.
There was alcohol. There was food. You know, we put some alcohol away, but I didn't see the drugs that they're doing today. You know, but that's what I understand, and I was told by somebody that's what I understand happened to Benoit, is he had the deadly combination. You know, it just, the people that have died, I mean, and they've all died young. so young. It's very scary, the mortality of a wrestler. There are very few wrestlers left from Oregon where I started out. There are there's Butch and Luke, the sheep herders.
There's Billy Jack Haynes.
Billy's still hanging on, yeah.
I don't know what's going on with him, mind you, but
Neither does anybody else. People are looking for him and they can't find him. He's in Portland somewhere. He went down to Florida when Rip Oliver passed away. And something happened there. To this day, I don't know what happened there, but one of Rip Oliver's sons was coming up to Portland to have words with Billy. And the only thing he said is, what you did wasn't right. And that's all he will say about it. That he has not told the story, but he's looking for Billy. I've seen Billy one time, and that was at it was actually at a I have done one convention. It was in I want to say Philadelphia, but that's not right. It was in Connecticut. And I mean, he looked all right then. He was a mere shadow of himself. I mean, if he hadn't told me he was Billy Jack, I wouldn't have ever guessed it. He's gotten real thin, and people have seen him at the 7-Eleven and riding a bus in Portland, but that's all I know. Nobody knows where he's living. Nobody's got his phone number. Nobody knows how to get in contact with him.
I'll say one thing though. I admire what Diamond Dallas Page has done with guys like Jake the Snake Roberts and Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, and you know, I love what he has done, because I mean, Jake the Snake looks better than he's been in a long time. You know.
Yes, he does, and there's clarity.
Yep.
There's clarity in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I believe that if Page hadn't stepped in, Jake would be gone by now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I truly believe that Jake would have died without Page. He saved Jake's life. Period.
Yeah, he saved Scott Hall. I mean, Scott Hall ended up passing away earlier this year, but what was
Scott Hall? I didn't even hear about that. Scott Hall passed away?
Oh yeah, but it wasn't through drugs or anything like that. I think he had, I think it was a blood clot or something. Let me check on here.
You know, that's a funny thing. If you look at the way most of these wrestlers have passed away, cancer, heart attack, blood clot, or overdose. That's the four main ways wrestlers from my day are dying. It's just a weird thing, and most of them are heart attacks.
Yeah, he was 63.
Yep, that's about right.
Let me see. Let's go down here. Yeah, see if we can find something that's shorter, but
oh, they've got one of those where you have to keep pushing continue.
Yeah.
They put like less than a paragraph on each page.
Yeah, it's like death. It was in March 2022. He was hospitalized after falling and breaking his hip. He was immobile on the floor for days before being discovered during a wellness
Lord.
check.
What a horrible way
He was discovered during a wellness check by his friend Diamond Dallas Page, who took him to the hospital. And
he died in the hospital.
yeah, it says after Hall underwent his hip surgery, a blood clot was dislodged and resulted in Hall having 3 heart attacks.
Jesus.
And he said March 12th, after which he was put on life support.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's about the time that I slid back away from the everything, Facebook and all. I had no idea Scott had died. Scott was a very nice man. Very
Yeah.
nice man. He was in Portland for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Portland for a while. It's really hard on me when I look back at all the wrestlers that I have known. There's not very many of us left from my day.
Nope, there isn't. Nope.
I mean, and these last 3 years, we've been dropping like flies. It's I got to a point at one point that I didn't even want to go on Facebook because I find out somebody else had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. I mean, Buddy, me, Piper, Rip, even Matt, ornery asshole. We were all best friends. We were like this big dysfunctional family. If you have a house full of kids, they're going to fight every once in a while. But in the end, they always make up because they're family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way the wrestling business it was in my day. We all took care of each other. It's like I said, if somebody made a phone call or if I made a phone call back in my day and I needed this or I needed that, they were right there. I mean, from the beginning, when I was staying at Sandy's house, and I didn't know this, but me and Velvet, Sandy and Sherry agreed to have Velvet and I stay at the house because Velvet was already staying at the house because she lived in Canada and she came down to stay. And Sandy got tired of me being late to the matches, to training because I had to take the bus. I was on the other side of Portland. And one day I came in about 15 minutes late. He said, "How long will it take you to pack your stuff?" I said, "What?" He said, "How long will it take you to pack your stuff?" I said, "I don't know." At that time I didn't have anything but my record player, my albums, back in the late 70s. I had enough clothes to get by for a week. Almost everything, including my albums, fit in a backpack. I said, "Why do you need to know how long it's going to take me to pack?" He said, "You're moving into the house. I've already talked to Sherry about it. I'm tired of you being late." And I'd get a wild hair every once in a while, and I'd sneak out the back window and I'd head down to Portland or out to the Bomber where the guys were. And lo and behold, I wouldn't be out there walking. Now I'm on one side of Portland and the Bomber Motel is a half an hour plus away. And all of a sudden, one of the guys would just drive by and say, "Vicky, you need a ride." Well, I didn't know what was going on or why it happened. I just thought it was a hell of a coincidence until I went to Scott Teal's reunion in Tennessee, and Eric Embry was there. Mm-hmm. And this was before I got into business. I was training, but it was before I started wrestling. And Eric come up, give me a big hug, asked me how I was doing. And it took me a minute, of course. Like I said, we've all changed. And Eric and I started talking, and in the middle of us talking, he said, "By the way, do you know how many nights that you cost me sleep back in the day?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, do you know every time that you crawled out that window, Sandy knew you crawled out that window, and he called one of us up and tell us that crazy bitch is out there walking again. Will you go get her? I didn't know that there was an alarm on the window. You know, Sandy had a very nice house and it had serious security. When I opened the window, it went ding, ding, ding in Sandy's room and told him what door or window was open. And that's how he knew I was escaping. And he called one of the guys up in the bomber and sent him out to get him.
There you go.
Well, like I said, once again, it goes back to family. Even before I started wrestling, I was part of the family.
Yeah. No, I'm just sitting here silent here because listening to you tell it. I mean, the book was a great read. And I'm listening here and I'm thinking, you know, it's just like in that book, you have a real way of expressing yourself and yeah, like family, you had a number of guys that were good to you as well, you know. It's
Right.
just
Well,
unfortunate there was some head honchos in the business that weren't so good.
you know what? The only promoter that I felt did not treat me right, Bill Watts treated us like $1 million. Don Owens, he gave me my start. You know, he took care of me when a lot of people don't know this, but my first match was supposed to be a Christmas Day match.
Okay.
Velvet and I were on the card for Christmas for Portland at the sports arena, Chautauqua Sports Arena. And 2 weeks before that, December 8th, December 7th, I got a phone call from my biological mother at the Chautauqua Sports Arena. And I picked up the phone. I said, what's going on? She said, Granddad's in the hospital, but they say he's coming home tomorrow. And I'm getting the feeling again right now. I didn't breathe, blink, or think. I said, he's not coming home. I'm on my way. I knew it. And they had told us, they had told my grandmother and my mother, he was fine. He the old fart had lung surgery and he had stitches in his lung. Well, he couldn't, they had a wood stove. That was their main source of heat, was this big old cast iron wood stove in the middle of the house. And Grandma had hired a boy to cut the wood, and Grandpa didn't like the way the boy was cutting the wood, so he went out there to show him how and ripped a stitch in his lung. They went in, they fixed it. They said he's fine, he's going home. My mother calls. I said, no, he's not coming home. I knew it. It was just, it wasn't a thought. It wasn't a maybe. I knew he was not coming home. And Sandy, I said, I got to get to the bus stop. I said, my granddad's in the hospital. I can be there tomorrow afternoon. I've got to go. I'm sorry. Sandy said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. He told me, and I remember his words to this day. He said, Vicky, it's going to take you over 8 hours on a bus to get home. I can have my pilot, Sandy had a Cessna 180, and he said, I will have my pilot, as soon as the sun rises, I will have my pilot fly you to your grandparents. And there was a small airport about 20 miles from their house. And sure enough, I went ahead and worked that night. As soon as the sun, just before the sun come up, Sandy drives me to the airport, get on the plane, land. The airport's so small, my grandmother literally drove up to the plane. That's how small the airport was. And get in the car, go see my grandfather. I heard the nurses say he's fine. He's going home tomorrow. Y'all go home, get some rest. You can pick him up tomorrow. Well, grandma and grandpa's house was about 20 minutes from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma and I get in the car. We're walking in the door and the phone is ringing. My grandfather, it was a hospital. My grandfather had went into complete organ failure out of nowhere. His heart, his lungs, his liver, everything, kidneys shut down. He died the next day.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, actually, he died, yeah, the next day, but he went straight onto life support. So, and he was in a coma. If it hadn't been for Sandy flying me there, I'd have never got to say goodbye to my grandparents, my grandpa. You know, we always took care of each other. All the promoters, except for Vinnie Mac. Vince McMahon Sr. took care of us. Vince McMahon. There was one night, me, Velvet Wendy, and I want to say Peggy Fowler,
Mm-hmm.
Peggy Lee Leather.
There you go.
We got into this snowstorm in upper New York. And it got so bad. Now, I've driven for years at that time, all over the United States. We were in upstate New York, and it got so bad that I turned the car over to Velvet, which nobody drove my car. That was my baby. I turned the car over to Velvet. In order to get to the venue, Velvet had to put one wheel off the road in the dirt because the road was so slick. You couldn't get any traction. She got us to the motel. I called, let them know that we had finally made it. And they said, nobody called you and told you it was canceled. McMahon Sr. paid each one of us girls $200 for a night that we didn't wrestle because we made the venue.
That's awesome.
You know, Bill Watts, same thing. When I hurt my neck, I got Bell palsy. I had gotten to the point where the right side of my face was paralyzed.
It's funny how when that happened to Jim Ross, Vince McMahon takes opportunity to make fun of him.
Right. It's not funny. It's terrifying. Nope. When any part of your body, especially your face, is paralyzed, it's terrifying. But I had a stiff upper lip. I, like every other wrestler in the business, it'll fix itself. I walked into the dressing room one night in, I believe it was New Orleans, and I looked in the mirror and my right eye had started to droop. And I started crying. And Terry Allen, Magnum TA, came in and he said, "What's wrong?" And I told him. I wrestle that night. I get to the motel room. First thing in the morning, I get a phone call. And it's Bill Watts. He said, "You got an appointment at such and such a time with such and such a doctor at such and such an address. Either make the doctor's appointment or don't show up to the matches." Well, I made the doctor's appointment. I never saw a bill. I never saw a bill. It was not deducted from my wages or anything else. Bill Watts took care of it. And for him to get a visit with a doctor in less than 12 hours, that's pretty fantastic. Charlotte, they paid us well. I can't say anything bad about the Crockett's. Like I said, the only promoter I've ever had a problem with the way he treats people is Vinnie Mac. He's more worried about that wallet in his back pocket than he is about the health of his wrestlers.
That seems to be the ongoing thing. I think Vince, I think, had this whole idea, and you know what, I he took a risk. I love WrestleMania and whatnot, but it's like he wanted to conquer all of the other territories. And it's like,
He didn't conquer them. He destroyed them.
it's like, why do that? It's like I said to people about podcasting, I don't make money at this, but I always look at other podcasters as part of the same profession, people that enjoy doing this. I don't do it to compete with anybody else.
Right.
Yep. There's lots of room at the table for everybody. But with Vince, he wanted the whole table to himself.
The one problem with that is, well, actually, there's several problems with that. The main problem, in my opinion, everybody's got one. God knows I do. The one problem with that is when back in my day, when wrestlers were starting out, you had certain small territories that you sent them to, to get the green out from behind their ears.
Yep.
Until they got comfortable with themselves in the ring. There weren't any TV matches or anything like that. And of course, when you're green, mistakes are made. We don't have that anymore. Another thing is when we had the territories, when you had the Crockett's, when you had the Watts, when you had the Von Erichs, wrestlers could shift. These promoters were in contact with each other. They worked together. Roddy Piper loses a loser leave town in Portland. He goes to California. He wrestles there for a while. Then this promoter says, all right, you've run your thing here. Time for you to go. Here's the phone number. This is the promoter that wants you now. They all work together. There's none of that now.
Nope.
When I say wrestling was a family, I mean the promoters included. We all work together to promote the business. You can't do that now. The only way to make the big money anymore is to work for Vince McMahon. And thank God there's things coming up like ROH and what's the other one that's coming up?
AEW.
AEW, yes. They're starting to come up. They've gotten, when Vinny started, and the first thing that Vinny did, which really hurt a lot of promotions, was he started paying to be on TV. Instead of the people with the commercials that were on wrestling, he paid the studio for them to show wrestling. Well, your smaller promotions can't afford that. And like I said, back in the day, the commercials pay wrestling. They were sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first step in destroying a lot of these promoters, was taking the television away or making them pay for it. They couldn't afford it. And now, like I said, promoters used to work together. It's starting to come back, I believe, but Vinny's not part of it. I'm hoping that since what's her name? Stephanie. Is it Stephanie and Triple H have taken over the WWE? I'm hoping that along with what I've been told, the matches are changing. They're going back to reality. Maybe they will go back to all of the territories working together instead of having one territory that does it all. Agreed.
Well,
it'd be nice to see that again. I mean, when I wrestled, my first match was for Ed Moretti in Idaho. It was out in the middle of the boondocks. I mean, what else is there in Idaho? It wasn't a large crowd. So it wasn't as intimidating as, say, shoot, I've been in the business well over 6 years when I walked into Madison Square Garden, and I was sweating bullets when I saw the size of that crowd. And I've been in front of crowds before. If you watch the night that Velvet and I took the belts, from when Joyce and Wendy dropped the belts to us on Madison Square Garden, you'll see me hook Velvet's elbow. And we kind of do a do-si-do. And you'll see me saying something. And what I'm saying is, Velvet, look at all these blankety blank people. That's one word I won't use on a podcast in public either. But I said that, and she just, both are, I know we look like deer in the headlights. But if that had been our first match, even after being in the business as long as I had been at the time, I messed up the first move in the ring because I was that intimidated by the size of the crowds. That's why you need the smaller territories to start guys out in, to start gals out in, so that they can get used to people, used to listening to the crowd, and you don't have that anymore. You don't have the territories working together. And that's what really blew it, is when Vinny bought out what was it, Watts, Von Erichs, Gagne, and then bought all the rights to all the films and all of that. He did a disservice to the business, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, and letting people like Hulk Hogan have his pretty much full creative freedom too.
Well, see, the promoters that I know would listen to a wrestler's opinion, but if somebody flat wouldn't do, put somebody over, they didn't last long. They didn't last long at all.
And I'll say this too. You take a look at Terry Funk, and you take a look at Mick Foley. Those are guys, especially Mick Foley. I think I've seen him lose more matches than win. But yeah, it wasn't about that, because he knew how to get himself over, whether he won the match or not.
You know how many matches I've lost in my career? All of them.
Not all of them. You and Velvet won the belts and stuff.
Yeah, but how many matches did we lose to Wendy and Joyce before that happened? Wendy and Joyce had the belts for I don't know how long. What would have happened if they had said, no, we don't want to drop the belts? They're going to keep the belts and keep the belts and keep the belts and keep the belts. No wrestling fan wants to see that all over and over and over again.
Nope.
You've got to make them, if you lose and they love you and you get screwed, which is most of the time what happens with the big face, you lose, you lose by a screw, pulling in the trunks, something. Then the fans want to come back. You beat this person before, now you've lost. Now they're mad at this person and they want to see this person get beat. So they're coming back next week. But if they see you win and win and win and win and win and win, why are they coming back?
Exactly.
It's called psychology.
Yep. And I guess Hogan didn't like losing to people that are smaller than him too. It's why how fair would it be to him if Andre had pulled that same stunt?
You took the words right out of my mouth. How many times has Andre the Giant been beaten. I've seen him beat in Portland, but the next week the crowd was even bigger. And I think he lost to Piper, if I'm not mistaken. It was either Piper or Buddy. But the people came back the next week because they loved Andre and they wanted to see him beat Buddy Rose because they hated Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wrestling used to be, and this is something else that really bothers me, is you can't bring your kids and grandma to the matches anymore.
No.
You know, with all the TNA and all the foul mouth, do you know what would have happened if I had said even damn in an interview when I was working for Don Owens? He'd have skinned my hide. It would have been, I'd have walked in the dressing room, don't change your clothes, pack your bag, you're done. You know, it used to be you'd look on the front row and here's grandma, grandpa, you know, little Bobby, little Sue, mom and dad. Now you don't see that anymore.
No, you don't.
And wrestling needs to get the respect back. You know, all the cussing and all, it's not necessary. In fact, something that was really prolific one day. She said the only reason people use and she called them curse words, not cuss words, curse words, is because they can't think of another word that they can use better. It's ignorance. And would you take a 6-year-old kid to a WWE match with all the cussing and the foul mouth and the TNA?
No.
All right, you've already lost. There's half your crowd right there.
Yep.
You know, it needs to clean it up a bit. I mean, I'm not saying get rid of hell and damn, but the F word.
Oh, they're saying right now, and this is something I heard Jim Cornette talk recently about Triple H, them not wanting blood in matches anymore. And I'm like, you know how dull a cage match, for example, is without blood?
Right. There's a fine line. You can use it too much or not enough. It's got to have a purpose. It's got, and like a cage match. How the heck can you get in a cage match and get your head run into the cage and not bleed?
Exactly.
With all them little burr things on the side, like, no. You know, it's got to I believe in it. It's got to have a purpose. And when they take that away, what have you got? You got a clown show now.
Yep.
You got a bunch of clowns showing TNA and cussing. I don't want to see a match like that.
Neither do I.
So, I mean, I guess this is where the hardcore is going to start taking over. You know, I don't particularly agree with hardcore. It's got its place, though. You know, and more of it's going to start taking over if wrestling doesn't get back to what it was.
Agreed.
I mean, I remember the first time I saw Buddy Rose, and his yellow hair was literally red, and I was a fan.
Oh, Ric Flair's done that. Yep.
Yep. Ric Flair, Buddy, they've all done it. The first time I ever saw that, it was during the Piper Buddy Rose feud, and I hated Buddy Rose. With every fiber in me, I hated Buddy Rose. But when Piper ran his face down that fence and he turned around and it was just blood, that was the most satisfying feeling. And it's terrible to say, But I hated Buddy Rose. That he did his job well,
He
very
did
well.
his job well, exactly.
But I've only seen that as a fan. I've only seen that maybe 3 or 4 times.
Hmm.
But it was necessary at the time, and it made an impression. I mean, I'm 61 years old, and I can still go back to that 13, 14-year-old kid and remember what it felt like when Buddy Rose turned around and Piper had ripped his forehead open. You know, there was the whole crowd cheered.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, you know, let them do what they're going to do. They always have, they always will. Sooner or later, they're going to lose. Sooner or later, if they keep, you know, yes, there is a time for change, but not that kind of change. I just, it's changing too much. And a lot of fans, and I talk to the fans a lot, they want old school wrestling back.
Yeah.
When you watch ROH on TV,
Hmm.
and they're having a solid old school wrestling match, and you hear that crowd in the background going, "This is wrestling," this, and they're chanting over and over again, the whole crowd, "This is wrestling." ROH is listening to the fans. They're bringing our old school back, and with hardly any exceptions, the fans I talk to, they want old school wrestling back. They don't like what the WWE has become.
No. And it's like, well, it's pretty obvious Vince didn't listen to the fans anyway, you know, so.
Well, of course, I'm hoping with what I'm hearing, since Stephanie and Triple H have taken over, I'm hoping that this is an actual change for the good and a permanent change.
Yep.
Because and I've heard this from another wrestler who is watching, and he has actually convinced me that I need to turn on my TV on Friday and watch the WWE, because I will see a definite change. We all know I haven't watched WWE since 1987. The infamous Kuwait trip. I have watched on YouTube a wrestling match, a couple matches with Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
Rousseau. I have watched that.
Ronda Rousey.
Okay, Ronda Rousey.
Rousey.
Rousey. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like Chris Benoit. It took me 2 years to pronounce his name right, because I'm looking at it and I'm saying it phonetically, you know, with what the letters I'm seeing in front of me, and I don't see Benoit in there. I saw Bonet in there.
There you go.
But
yep.
I'm gonna give it one more shot. I'm gonna watch next Friday. I'm gonna watch and see if what I've heard is the truth. I'll let you know. You know, we talk quite a bit on Facebook. I'll let you know what I think.
Oh yeah, you let your voice be heard.
Well, I've never been a quiet person, that's for sure. I made myself a promise when I was 14 that I would never let anybody step on me again. I'd never be scared to state my opinion again. And I'm not. It's just an opinion. It doesn't hurt anybody. Everybody's got the right to speak their truth. You know? And too many people are saying, "Oh, you can't say that. You can't say this. You can't." No, wrong. I actually got told by somebody that I was prejudiced because I called myself an Indian.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
I
I
think I
kid you
might have.
not.
I think I might have saw that too on online there.
And I said, well, hell, what are you going to think when I call myself a squat? Almost got you. That went over like a lead balloon with this particular person. Even down here in Oklahoma, this is, Indian territory. You can throw a rock and hit a reservation here.
Mhm.
They call themselves Indians. They don't say native, they say Indians. All this cancel culture that's going on about you can't have an opinion, you can't say this, you can't do that. In my personal opinion, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting someone else,
Yep.
say what you want to say. Say how you feel. I mean, I don't want you going around, using epitaphs against other races. I don't believe in racism. But some people are racist. It's that fact. You can choose to be around or not. People can choose to be around me with my opinions, or they can choose to be around you with your opinions or not. But yeah, I was flabbergasted when I said I said something to the effect, I'm Indian. Oh, you're prejudiced.
Yeah, those people can suck it.
I think my favorite word, and I had a T-shirt that said it. I need to buy it again. My favorite saying was "bite me."
Yeah. Yeah. Some of these people, I think, go online just to be angry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scroll by. There are many times that somebody puts something up. Really, I didn't know you thought like that. Scroll. They're stating their opinion. It's their page. If you don't like what they say or how they say it, unfriend them. It's that simple.
Yep.
Keyboard warriors are not my favorite people.
Oh no,
Yeah.
they're not tough at all.
Oh no, I can't remember who it was, but there was one day I told somebody, I said, I know where you live. Why don't you just come outside and we'll talk about this face to face?
Yep.
Dang if they didn't shut up. All of a sudden they didn't want no more of me, and okay, you don't like what I'm saying, scroll on, unfriend me. It's funny. Do you ever oh shoot, what's his name? Oh, what is his name? My brain is not working today, worth nothing. Like I said, I've been down for a while and there's been a reason for it. A second. It's hell when you talk to a person every day and can't remember their name. All right. It won't let me bring it up. What is going on with my... It's not just me. My computer's messing up. There it is.
Okay.
All right, there it is. Hang on. Oh shoot, what is going on with my computer now?
I don't know. I can't see you.
It's not letting me do what I want to do. It has taken my page and blown it up to like 200%.
Oh.
Well, I can't do it.
You don't remember the person?
I can see him right in front of me, and I can't remember his name for some reason today. Like I said, I had to take a break and I'm just getting back. Let's see if it'll do it now. I hate a computer.
Yeah.
I hate a computer. This dang thing. Well, and now there's a great big fat fly on my screen. Anyway, one of my friends on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
he is constantly, he comes out, oh, you fans, you watch wrestling, you're stupid. And I'm not going to, go into the epitaphs and all he uses. We had one day we were on Facebook, and I was talking about autographing pictures.
Yep.
And he came out of nowhere and he goes, I still remember when I was 10 years old and I came up to you and gave you a picture, and I couldn't even read the signature. It was so sloppy. Well, I knew he was ribbing me. And I came back with, well, I remember that day too. You had snot on your face. You had snot on your hands. There was snot on the picture. The pen slid. There was so much snot. Now leave me alone, you snotty little brat. And this is a full-grown man. Well, we kept going back and forth like that. I can't remember the whole conversation, but it was, one slam. He'd slam me, I'd slam Harley Lewis. And all of a sudden, the people who are watching us talk on his Facebook started getting on him because he was slamming me. And we're in the background talking on Messenger going, can you believe these idiots are falling for this?
Yep.
And we did that for like 30 minutes, and we're in the background just laughing. We're having fun, and they're wanting to fight. Now, they should have known, watching his page, him and I are good friends. And they should, but somebody wanted to pick on somebody. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Keyboard warriors. If you see somebody in a Facebook fight, leave them alone. Let them fight. Harley and I were just playing, and everybody had to take it seriously.
Wow.
It's something else. I don't. This world. My grandmother, about a week before she died, she told me. She said, "Vicky, I've seen things in my life, but you're gonna see things that I would not even think of." She said, things are changing, and they're changing fast, and they're changing for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother was never like that. That was when she said it, I took it straight to heart. And she's right. I mean, when you can't say what you think without somebody telling you can't say what you think. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Exactly.
There's something seriously wrong with that picture.
Yep.
When you're told you have to do it this way, and I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about this last generation that's coming up.
Oh, gee.
Well, it's the cancel culture.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. You can't say that. Don't tell me what I can say. My sister bought a T-shirt, and I believe what it said is, your emotions, your feelings end where my freedom begins.
There you go. Love that.
Yeah. Do what you want to do. Don't hurt anybody. The old saying, words don't hurt, stones do.
Yep.
That needs to be plastered in every school around the world. People are getting too, don't get me wrong. I don't believe in body shaming. I don't believe in racism, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But if Joe Blow is a racist, that's his problem. That's not my problem. I can tell him that I think he's wrong, but I can't tell him you can't be a racist. That's what freedom, that's what this United States was built on. Freedom of speech. You know, you're not free to physically hurt somebody. You're not free to call somebody foul names.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in that. But burning downtown Portland, really?
Yep.
Are you kidding me? Things are, it's just getting out of control. You know, you have the right to free speech. You have the right to march. You do not have the right to march in the highway and impede traffic.
True.
You see where I'm going with this?
I see exactly where you're going.
That things are changing in this world, and it's not for the best. You know, it's not for the best. Martin Luther King would not believe in the things that are happening. You know, yeah, no, that cop did not have the right to do what he did. And I saw the video. And when he brought out his pepper spray and started threatening that EMT, somebody should have called a supervisor, or those other 3 cops should have stopped him.
Yep, I agree.
I have a serious problem with that. I mean, I cried when I saw that video. But he's one person. He was wrong. Downtown Portland was not wrong. Downtown Eugene was not wrong. Downtown Philadelphia wasn't wrong. What do you accomplish when you destroy businesses?
You know, a lot of those people just saw an opportunity. They didn't even care about the situation. They just saw an opportunity to go on a rampage and get away with it, so to speak.
I agree. And I believe, and I saw this one video, I believe there were plants. I've seen the people who marched, carried their signs on the sidewalk, in the park, you know, not impeding anybody, not hurting anybody, not burning anything. And then I saw a video of a guy coming out of nowhere, full mask, all in black, undetectable, and he starts breaking windows. Well, he broke 2 windows and he left, and the rest of the crowd followed him. I believe there were plans to start that. I mean, you can't, what do you accomplish when you put people out of work or out of their homes, or try to burn a police station down with police in it? With police in it. Everyone, not one of those cops that was in that police station did wrong. They were not up there killing George Floyd. That one cop was, and he's now in prison.
Mm-hmm.
But all this destruction, I mean, it's just, I don't remember in my lifetime seeing this before. I've seen people march, but I've never seen people destroy entire towns. And they did an interview with a kid in Eugene, and it was while he was lighting a dumpster on fire.
Oh shit! Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I did.
Mm.
And he didn't even know George Floyd's name.
Of course he didn't. Yeah.
He actually stated, "Oh, we're just out here having fun. Y'all have kept us locked up too long." That exact words.
Oh gee, that.
Yeah, and that was on live news. And I agree with you. I don't think a lot of the people even knew George Floyd's name. They weren't doing anything but down there to destroy and destruct.
Yep.
And how the hell did we get on this? Greg, you bring out the worst in me sometimes, I swear.
Yeah.
But
We got to get that dinner date where you and Velvet go on a dinner date with Jim Cornette and the Iron Sheik.
okay.
We got to make that
Okay.
happen.
Velvet and I will go to the Japanese restaurant. Cornette and Sheik can go to the Italian restaurant.
No,
you guys. We'll eat dinner together apart. Oh. By the way, what is Jimmy raising hell about now? I know he's raising hell about something. What's he raising hell about?
AEW. I know he doesn't
What doesn't he like?
Oh, he definitely doesn't like Orange Cassidy. He doesn't, or he doesn't like Twinkle.
I love Jimmy.
He doesn't like he doesn't like Twinkle Toes McFinger Bang, as he likes to call Kenny Omega.
Or he Orange Kennedy. That's the one who keeps his hands in his pockets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I'd like 5 minutes alone in a room with him.
And then he doesn't like who he calls the young fox.
The young bucks. Yeah. Why?
Or he calls them the young fox.
Yeah. Actually, I like when I saw the Young Bucks on ROH. I actually was impressed with their wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mention ROH a lot for a reason. There are times that I don't agree with some of the stuff they do, but overall, 90% of their matches, I love them. Especially the little Japanese girl. What's her name? Sakai. Susie. I want to say Susie Sakai.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I believe it's Susie Sakai on ROH. She's their champion, and let me tell you what, those girls on ROH, most of their matches, I love them. I mean, it's actual wrestling. Sonny just came up to the door to be let out because my neighbor just pulled up. She looked out. The lights are off. He's not outside, so she walks back in. Traitor. She's cheating on me with my neighbor.
There you go. There you go.
Now she's walking back to the the dog food, because I haven't fed him yet. She's bossy.
There you go.
Oh, if I hadn't opened the door and let her back in, you'd hear her. She yells at me. She'll headbutt the door, and if I don't hear her headbutt the door, and I mean loud, and that's the only time she barks. You could have 15 people in here robbing my house, and she'd walk up to them and go, "Pet me." You know, pet me. I'll show you where some more stuff is.
Well, you know, it's always wonderful talking to you, you know, and I love it when I can sit back and just let my guest talk, you know, and I love hearing your stories, love hearing your point of view, and sorry that I made you throw up several times, mentioning that one poor girl with Vince and John Lewis.
Oh, shut up, shut up. There's not enough liquor or money in the world. I could have a baby down to my last bottle of milk, and there's not enough money in the world.
But, you know, we should plug your website. You want to plug your website on here?
Sure, Sure. On Facebook, it's Vicky Otis, Vicki Otis. I have a picture of my son and his wife up. Friend me, and I'll accept your friendship. On Instagram, it's Princess Victoria Tag Team Champ. On Twitter, it's Princess Victoria. And you can contact me on any three of those. Something else I'm doing, and y'all might want to have some fun, is on my Facebook page, I've created a group, and it's called How to Get Back at a Scammer. And
I've seen you do this. Yep.
I was recently ripped off by this moving company of $1,550. What happened is I hired them. They wanted a deposit. They were supposed to go load my stuff and drive it from Vancouver down to here and drop it off. But I had to put down a $1,550 deposit. Well, when this moving company, Allstate Moving of America in Florida, when the movers showed up, they showed up in a rented U-Haul van. Nothing but street clothes, no back braces, no blankets in the truck, no dolly in the truck. And as soon as they pulled up, the guy told me, oh, it's not going to be, at that time I had to pay another third of what it was going to be. It was actually not $1,100. He says, oh no, it's not $1,100. It's $2,000.
Oh.
All right, 3 red flags already before that happened. No identifying company shirts, just street clothes. No moving belts. What moving man have you ever seen, honest moving man, that does not have a brace on? They didn't have the straps. They didn't have any tie down, nothing. It was an empty rented U-Haul van. And then he tells me, well, it's not $1,100. It's going to be $2,000. I walked away. My brother Doug was standing beside him and started talking to him. As he's talking to this guy, the 2 other guys, I haven't signed any contracts or anything yet, are moving my stuff out of the shed. Okay. All of a sudden, I hear my brother say, put her blankety blank shit back in the shed. And I just looked at him. And the reason he did that, because while he was talking to the so-called lead man, they had 3 different contracts with 3 different prices with my name on.
Wow.
Right. Well, I tried to get my money back, my deposit back, but I had unfortunately, and this is a lesson for everybody, I had unfortunately signed an online contract that I had to cancel 48 hours before the movers showed up in order to get my money back. Well, because I signed the online contract, Visa wouldn't get my money back. And even after I told the first guys that showed up at the unit that I wasn't moving, the next day, this is how organized they are. The next day, one of their other movers called me and wanted to know if I was going to meet him that day. And on my website, it's called, in my group, it's called How to Get Back at a Scammer. And I'm not going to get my money back. You and I know that.
No, yeah, that's right.
But I also found out that there are 10 moving companies in the state of Florida that are under federal investigation right now for doing exactly what they did to me. When I went on to the Better Business Bureau, one woman, when they showed up, the same moving company, Allstate Moving of America, she had to pay an extra $13,000 to get her stuff off the truck.
Shit. I would have laid them out.
There is another woman whose stuff has been missing for more than 3 months and they can't find it. And their answer, Allstate of America's answer to every complaint is, we told you we're not a moving company. We are simply a booker. You need to talk to your moving company about that. So what they do, and they're prominent. If you put in moving, moving trucks or moving companies into your browser, Allstate of America is one of the first ones that'll show up. So on my group chat, how to get back at a scammer, I've got all of the phone numbers and websites and Facebook of all of the people that I talk to. And what I've been doing is having people call them up and text them and email them and tell them, give Victoria Otis her money back, which I'm not going to get my money back, but I can cost them more money than what they stole from me.
That's definitely
Well,
the way to go.
I've got the Washington Attorney General, and the Florida Attorney General and the Oklahoma Attorney General, because it was all done all over the phone and all on all 3 states, and the FDIC. Let's see. I got a whole page. Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier, the United States Attorney General, the Attorney General for like I said, Washington, Florida, and Oklahoma, and also the Federal Information Center I've filed complaints with every one of them. And I have gotten answers back from all 4 attorney generals. They are third-party mediators, but they are also going to investigate this company.
Good.
But I figured, not only give them the paperwork where they're getting all these letters and they're being investigated, I figured, as many people as possible to call them up on all the numbers and say, give Victoria Otis her money back, would be quite entertaining.
There you go.
And when you're calling them, emailing them, and they're answering the phone to the people who are calling them on my behalf, that's one more person they're not talking to and ripping off. You saved one person from being ripped off. Yes, I'm old, I'm evil, old age and treachery.
You're not being evil. You're giving them exactly what they deserve. That don't make you evil at all.
Well, can you imagine that woman who had to pay $13,000 to get her stuff back, and her stuff probably wasn't worth $13,000 value-wise. But what about all her personal pictures? What about the little remembrances she has, the pictures of her kids, her personal computer? That stuff's worth $13,000, and that's the reason she paid it. They get you in a bind, they get your stuff, and then they can charge you whatever they deem necessary. Unless
you get enough friends together, you happen to surround that truck.
This is true too, but
few of you have baseball bats, I'm
right.
Sure you can get your stuff back.
Well, actually, I found out an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I had let them put my stuff on the truck,
Mm-hmm.
they would have been arrested. If they didn't deliver it for the price that I had agreed upon,
Mm-hmm.
I could have had them arrested for theft. And I had an officer tell me that under the table. He said, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I wish you would have let them take your stuff, because then we could have arrested all of them for theft. And they could have filed charges on everybody that I talked to in Florida for what is it called? Abating after and before the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm going to let you go because you and I can talk for hours. Hey, baby.
Look at that. Skittles came back again.
Hey, Skittles. I love the way he does his paw. He just loves you so much.
Yeah.
Aw.
He's my buddy.
Yes,
He's my
I
buddy.
can tell. Aw. He's sweet.
He's my
But
buddy.
anyway, everybody get on my Facebook page, Vicky Otis, and join that group, and you'll see all the phone numbers and email addresses and all right there. Please give these guys a call, and so they don't forget me.
There you go. And while you're at it, people, get a copy of Princess Victoria's book.
And the photographs. I've got the shirt for sale that he's wearing too.
Yeah, let's show this off again. Look at that.
And those are $28, including shipping. And Greg, tell them what kind of quality that shirt is.
Oh, this is great quality.
That's your
Look at-
husky. Those are your husky tees. It's what I call a 20-year shirt.
I love this. This is a great shirt. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not one of those thin off-stitch shirts. That's a husky tee. It's a good. It'll last you. I guarantee you, it'll last 20 years.
Oh, great. Last me till I'm 70. That's excellent.
Oh yeah, you could run around when you're 70 going, I knew her. I actually wore one of those shirts to the local Goodwill.
Yeah.
And the guy said, I like your shirt. Who is that? I said, that's me 40 years ago. Wait for it. He gave me his business card and told me to call him.
And of course, I got to show these off. I still had these out here.
Yep.
Yep.
And like I said, those are 50 a piece, including both signatures. I'll personalize them or not, depending on what you want. And if you want both of them, I'll let you have them for $75. And that includes shipping.
There you go.
And Greg, thank you so much for all you do for me. You are so sweet.
Oh, I try. But I'm secretly setting you and Velvet up with Jim Cornette and the Iron Sheik for a nice dinner date.
Well, I've always said, if you see me running, you better run too.
Look, at least those two are entertaining. At least they're not. At least they're not Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. You know.
Oh, shut up! I don't need. Nobody needs that picture in their head.
Yeah, that would make you throw your food up.
Right. Well, I'm just, like I said before, I'm very proud of the woman who took a stand. She's a I don't know who she is, but somebody, if you know who she is and you know her, walk up and tell her she's got my respect. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, that I am very respectful of a woman that stood up. She's very strong.
Yep, stood up to Vince of all people. And they tried to throw John Laurinaitis under the rug, under the bus about it, and rightfully so. But you know, it's like, no, Vince, you're not walking away from this one.
No, and you notice you don't see him with Linda anymore.
Yeah, I think it was it Jim Cornette that was talking about that? Somebody was, you know, but.
Well, after his antics cost her job, and she had to resign, and you know that was because of Vinny.
Yep.
Why would she resign from a job that was paying her well over $100,000 a year?
Exactly.
You know, I pray that Linda doesn't have a health issue, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with Vinny being her husband.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, she resigned while Trump was in line.
Yeah.
Trump gave her the job, and she lost her job before he lost his.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, Greg, I'm gonna say goodnight. My dogs are dying of hunger. They're wasting away to nothing.
Well, you know what? It's wonderful, always wonderful to have you on here, and hearing your stories. And I know there was parts of this I didn't say anything. I just sat back silent, and I do that every once in a while when I just let my guest talk, because that's what they want to hear. They want to hear the guests, and you've got some great stories.
I always have fun with you, Greg, and thank you for being the type of person you are. I mean, I have fun when I tell my stories. You know, I'm old. That's what old people do. We tell our stories. We relive our youth. So you have a great evening.
Absolutely.
Have a great day. Have a great week and a life. And I will surely talk to you again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're always welcome.
Right. Oh, and one more thing.
Yeah.
Within the next couple of months, I've got a surprise coming up for everybody. I can't tell them what it is right now, but I got a surprise coming up.
She's marrying Jim Cornette, folks. I told you.
Oh, hell no. Now, you know, when a country girl says that, it's too late to run. She's already got her gun out.
Well, before I let you go, please do a plug for my show.
And what would you like me to say?
Say your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Python's Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there a TV show called Python's Paradise?
Not that I know of.
Oh. Good evening, folks. This is Princess Victoria. You're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise. Let me spit that out one more time.
There you go.
Good evening, folks. This is Princess Victoria. You're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Absolutely. And you know what? Thank goodness, you and Velvet are two of the very, very best. And it's great to see the women's division strengthening,
It is. I'm seeing it. Like I said, I'm going to watch Friday night and see what I see if I watch it anymore. But you got places like AEW, you got ROH. They actually have a Women of Honor League, and those women, every woman that I have seen on ROH is a true wrestler. So the women are coming back, and we're coming back strong. And I hope wrestling is doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I bid you a wonderful night. And
yes.
Thank you so much for coming on here a third time. And hey, look forward to the fourth.
There you go. Anytime. I'll talk to you later, darling.
All right. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.